video. So for today's video, I'd like to talk about my experience going to Japanese language school as well as answer some of your questions. So if you submitted a question, thank you so much, and please wait until the end of this video because that's when I'm gonna answer all of it, and yeah, keep on watching. So after I decided that I wanted to go to Japanese language school, I found Jellyfish Education Philippines, which acted as a middleman between myself and the potential language school I was going to go to. And I ended up going with UJS Language School in Roppongi, Chome. After choosing UJS, Jellyfish gave me a list of documents I had to submit. Most of them were financial in nature. Then Jellyfish got into contact with the school interviewed me, and they processed my COE. After I got the result of my COE application, which was thankfully an approved application, I was then eligible to apply for a student visa. If you don't get your certificate of eligibility or COE, then you can't apply for a Japanese student visa. And if you get rejected, you have to wait another 6 months to apply for a COE again, and then eventually a visa. I flew to Tokyo on March 22nd, 2019, and that was my first official day in Japan. That's my Japan anniversary, for y'all who want to know. And then I stayed at the share house by Create Guest House. If you guys are interested in seeing that video, I have one up here. It's a tour of my share house, and it was in Nishiwasada, which was about 30 minutes from UJS in Roppongi, Chome. On my first day of language school, they gave us a diagnostic exam as well as an orientation, and I was placed in the morning class, so that was from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and all my classmates were Vietnamese and they were much younger than me, so I felt like that old lady in class being like, "Hello fellow kids," and it was just really awkward in the beginning, but they were so kind and so nice. At times I felt like class would be too fast-paced and I wouldn't be able to keep up, but they were always there guiding me and making sure that I was aware of my mistakes, and it was just a really good learning environment for me. As for the class structure, we would go through kanji and shadowing for the first hour or so, and then after that we would go into vocabulary and then grammar points. For the first 3 months we used Mina no Nihongo 1, and then we had our finals exam which had all the kanji that we learned, all the grammar points, and all the vocabulary. The next 3 months were spent learning Mina no Nihongo 2, and then at the end of those 3 months there was also a final exam which had kanji, grammar, you get the picture, and an essay as well. After Mina no Nihongo 2, we moved on to N3 and Chukiwaiko. My school used this together to kind of supplement some gaps that weren't addressed in Mina no Nihongo 2, as well as the N3 book, which I thought was quite helpful. And if you guys are wondering, why did they start you off all the way back from N5 up to N3? And I feel like this method kind of helped because it made sure that everybody was on the same level when we entered. The school would know that we didn't have any gaps with our learning because they taught us everything from square one all over again, so it would be impossible for us to have any gaps, which I really appreciated. However, there are other language schools that do it differently, like my friend Eri, who went to another Japanese language school. After she took her diagnostic exam, they put her in the N3 class, and she was just N5 with me in Jellyfish, and then she moved up to N3. So it can vary per school. It really just depends. Every experience is different, so yeah. Sometime before the first term ended, we were all required to go to a speech competition held by the school, in which we had to watch the older, more advanced students kind of give these really long, drawn-out speeches in Japanese, which was so inspirational and motivational for me. It was like, these guys were just here a year ahead of me and they speak so well already, so I hope that I could speak as well as them in the future. After the speech competition, we were given a few other opportunities to have field trips. Like, we went to Ueno and we went to this museum there, and then we had to do like a treasure hunt kind of thing. And then eventually we had to go to Mount Fuji for our field trip, which was so much fun because I got to see my classmates see snow for the first time, and they were so adorable. I'm really going to miss my classmates because they were the sweetest kids ever. Eventually, I graduated in March of this year because my contract with the school was only 1 year, but you do have an opportunity to extend it. So if you feel like you still want to learn more Japanese and you really like your school, then go ahead and extend it for another year. I don't think there are any problems there. The school should be able to help you extend your visa and renew it. If you guys are wondering why I wanted to learn Japanese in the first place, I don't think I could say this enough, but I've always wanted to live in Japan. I've always loved Japanese culture ever since I was a kid. I was that kid who really liked anime, and I spent an embarrassingly large amount of my day drawing anime and like watching Naruto and Inuyasha and all those things. And when I realized that, you know, I could actually learn the language and it would be a more immersive experience for me. So I just decided, why not? I'll just try it. And if I'm bad at it, then I won't do it anymore. But after realizing that you can understand something from zero and then get to a conversational level of Japanese and watch the news and understand what they're saying, it just feels so fulfilling to me. And that's what keeps me going. I just love learning Japanese and I love being able to see where I improve little by little. So that's why I wanted to learn Japanese. I do plan to get it up to N2, get my fluency up, all of it up there, and I know that it's going to take a lot of time, but it's just something I've already committed myself to do, and I hope to get to N2 by either end of this year or early next year. That's really my plan. If not, I still have the rest of my life to get better at Japanese, and my plan is to just like work for a Japanese company in which I could do a little bit of social media or write a little bit, just stuff that I did in the Philippines that I hopefully can apply in Japan. So now we're at the part of the video where I'm going to answer some of your questions. So Francisco asks, aside from learning the language, what are opportunities you'll get from attending a Japanese language school? I was able to grow my skill set more because when you have a Japanese student visa, you can actually work 28 hours of the week, and that can grow your skill set. You can enter an internship, a paid internship, you can work for social media if you find a company here. It's really fun, and there's so many opportunities for you to see how life is like in Japan and see how the language is applied. Knowing the language can open a lot of doors for you as well. Not a lot of companies in Japan will hire a foreigner who can't speak in Japanese unless you're really lucky. Most of them will require N2 fluency and above. So by going to Japanese language school, that's kind of like your first step, and it kind of accelerates your learning, I think, personally. So I hope that answers your question, Francisco. Next, Gabrielle asks, what's the hardest part of studying in a language school? How effective and helpful has it been in your grasp of Japanese, and would you recommend it to others who would like to learn it? I think that if you have the opportunity to go to a Japanese language school, I would recommend to do it as soon as possible. I think that was my biggest regret, like not going to language school sooner, basically. I just enjoyed my experience so much. Granted, my school wasn't perfect, but it was still a really good experience for me to learn more about myself and of course Japanese. And the hardest part of Japanese language school was waking up at like 7 or earlier than 7 just to get to language school at 9, because my school is a stickler for attendance and tardiness. Like, you cannot absolutely be absent or late by any costs. If you're absent, you better call the school up before classes start, otherwise they're gonna get really upset. That was just how it was like in my school. And another hard part was obviously the finals exam. Like, it's easy the first 6 months because it's something you already know. It's already N5, N4. But as the subjects get harder and harder, like a little bit of N3, you're getting to the more intermediate parts of Japanese. That's when it gets a little bit confusing. As well as, I think, managing time, because of course you're going to Japanese language school, then sometimes you might have a part-time job, but you still have a huge exam, so it's about time management. And I think with like a good planner, you should get over that hurdle personally. And that's why I have my planner. I can't live without it. Next, from Ganjatan, how can you find a job after? Some people from Jellyfish had to go back home because they couldn't find a job. What are your advice for this, especially for people who don't have much experience? So for this one, I don't really have a straight answer because it was just a chance meeting. I was not prepared at all. I did go on Gaijinpot and a lot of other job search websites like LinkedIn trying to look for a job, and I've sent over 200 applications and none of them got back to me. Or when they did get back to me, they were asking whether or not I had a visa already for working, a work visa, because it's really difficult for Filipinos to get sponsored. So I was just really lucky with how I found my job. My boss found me. I didn't even find him. I feel like if you go through Gaijinpot or you have a friend who can refer you to someone who can get you a visa, a work visa that checks out with the Philippine government on that end, then you should be okay. It's just really difficult, and I understand the struggle. This is the anxiety I had to live with for almost a year because it's just so difficult to look for a job as a Filipino in Japan. So it's really complicated, and I have no experience or authority in this, so I can't really give you a straight answer. I'm sorry. So from Justin Rosales, we have, how's the situation there? Does immigration continue processing certificate of eligibility despite the current situation? Explain and share your plans with us after you graduate. I do hope to continue working here and continue my other part-time job of writing for this media website. I really enjoy it there too. I'm really lucky and I'm really thankful to have this opportunity. As for your question on the COE processing, I really don't know because I'm not really in that space anymore, and I don't think I have any authority to talk about it. As for the situation with how they're handling this thing that's going around right now, They are giving a stimulus package to everybody who lives here of 100,000 yen. They can't impose strict stay-at-home rules because it's against their constitution or something. So a lot of foreigners that I know of are doing it willingly and just staying at home. So thank you so much and please stay safe. We have another question. Eloise, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Number 1, how long do you think it takes to pass at least N2? I think that really depends on you, because I have a classmate from language school who was N5 when I met him, but he has been studying every day. Even before class, he would wake up at 5 a.m. and then study Japanese and then go to class and then go home and then study more Japanese, and he passed N2. So I think it's absolutely possible. It just depends on how motivated you are. Next, you mentioned in your last haul video that you worked in an office. What is the nature of the work and does it sustain all the expenses as a student? I also had another job as a social media community manager for another startup here in Japan, and it was okay, but I did have to scrimp a lot because my rent was 60,000 yen, and then I have to think about food, and then I have to think about transportation, and then I have to think about like emergencies and going out with my friends. So I think it was just enough to cover it. Having one part-time job should be okay as long as you're really smart with your money. Are you considering going back to the Philippines after your visa expires? At this point in time, I really just love Japan and I want to stay here for as long as I can. So at this point, not really. As much as possible, I want to keep my visa going until I can get permanent residency at this point. Thank you so much for sending in your question, Eloise, and I hope you have a good day. Next, from Marie Manzano, are you done with your 2-year contract with Jellyfish? How was it? So my contract with Jellyfish was just a year, and yes, I'm done with it, and it was okay. All in all, I really like that Jellyfish was so accommodating to all my questions, because I think I was the most annoying person ever during the application process. I was so worried my COE would get rejected and I was just being really annoying about it, but they were really kind and they really walked me through the entire process and they were very thorough with it. So I had a good relationship with the people at Jellyfish. When it's my birthday, they greeted me happy birthday, so I thought that was very sweet. Next, how many classes are there in a day and how many hours? So I would like to say that it's a 3-hour session divided into 4 parts. Like I mentioned earlier, there's kanji, shadowing, vocabulary, and then grammar, and each section of the day was divided into 45 minutes each, which was nice. It was a really good breather. Like after you get that information overload, you just want 10 minutes to just calm down and process everything that you learned. So yeah. And I think I have another question by Alma_Ash. I would like to see more about language school and where to stay, like apartment, dorm, or homestay, which is the best option. I think out of these, the most expensive option is a homestay, and next to that would be an apartment, next to that would be dorm. So I think the dorm, if you really want to save a lot of money, I would go with a dorm type setup or share house type setup. But please take note that you'd have to give up conveniences like space. So if you're okay with living in a small cramped space, then I think it should be fine, and it is the cheapest. Then I think after that would be a share house, because again, you're still sharing that area with these other people, but you have your own room. And then after that, it would be an apartment where you have an entire space to yourself. And then after that, it would be a homestay, in which you would live with a Japanese family. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. So that is basically my entire video on Japanese language school and how it was like for me. If you have any more questions, maybe I can do a part 2 and answer even more of it, so leave them in the comment box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you guys stay safe during this time. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye!